Welcome to We Are Live Special Edition. Chris Emmon, Travis Terrell, live from Midcoast Studio. Very, very excited to have a special guest who's in town all weekend at the St. Louis Funny Bone. He's a master of camera angles, comedy, acting, sketch performance. Tim Meadows, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you.
I can tell you're pretty jazzed. We've got a 2.5-hour conversation. Let's get deep.
I brought my guitar. So.
Did you really?
No, I didn't bring it. I could, though.
I'm a little bit upset with that. Mr. Meadows, how's your morning been in St. Louis? You're going to crush a weekend at St. Louis Funny Bone. I know people get really excited whenever you come in town in regards to jumping into just literally being in the same room with you, being able to perform for these people. What's it like coming back into St. Louis and I guess just getting in front of these people that have followed you for your entire career, and I feel like when you go to a Tim Meadows show, people are going to be almost passing out. Like it's a big deal for people to meet you. Yes, Meadowmania is what I call it.
Timberlake,
that's exactly what it is.
No, it is. It's a big deal whenever you come through, man.
Well,
it's
you.
Exciting.
I don't know if it's that exciting, but it's pretty exciting.
Okay.
I think the waiters and the waitresses at the club are happy to have me there. I don't think anybody's like overly excited. I'm not even that thrilled.
I can't tell.
Now that I think about it, I wish I wasn't here.
That's fair. It's extremely fair.
No, it's nice coming back. I also hope like new people are coming to the show this time around, because I do some of the same jokes, but I got new stuff also.
Sure.
So, and it's also every show is sort of different because I talk to the audience and improvise a little bit too.
That's a nice part about somebody with your skill set. Whenever you're talking about doing stand-up, Travis, he can just literally work in an entire 10-minute bit because you have those skills.
I can talk for 10 minutes. I don't know how it's going to be funny or not. I hope eventually something funny will come out of it, but there's no guarantee. And I always tell the audience too that this is not, this isn't prepared stuff. Especially when something bombs and I'm just talking.
You bail immediately?
Yeah, if it's, I can tell if I got somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Like if I know if I'm angry about something, then I'll talk about it and we'll find something in the anger. But if I'm like, I have to be mocking something in a way in order to like make it funny. I don't know, because sometimes I'll get serious and I'll state facts about things, but nobody cares about facts. We didn't come to learn something.
Those are the most damning things at time, though.
Yeah.
How are you finding time to do this? Of course, with the show, do you find time
Schooled,
in between?
you can see that on ABC.
Are you finding time in between to actually write, or is it just things that come to you that you just normally just see around you?
It's both. It's not. What I do usually is jot down ideas, and then when I'm performing, I'll go through notes that I have before the show.
Okay.
And then I'll say, okay, I got to try to remember to talk about this thing because it sort of relates to something that I'm already talking about.
Right.
And then I have to figure out a transition, but I always think, I'll think of it when I'm doing it,
That's ballsy.
That's an improviser's brain at work, people.
But
That's pretty ballsy.
it was, and it works if Colin Quinn gave me good advice because he told me once, like, if I get really, I told him I was bored doing the material because I had a set and I was doing it. And then he said, start adding new things but just like one new joke. And then you have that thing to look forward to every show.
Right.
And so I started playing with that where I'd go, okay, I have this thing I'm going to talk about, I don't want to give away material.
Right, don't do that.
Because I may do it tonight.
Okay.
But there's been times where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this thing, and then I'm going to lead into something else. Like once I had this idea for something that I thought was funny, which is the idea of a award show that is for people who make trophies. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to need you to flesh this out, please.
Yes. Well, you have an award show, and then it's for people who make actual trophies. So it's the Trophy Award Show.
You have Charles Trophy
Well, yeah, it's
Yes.
like the guy who created the bowling trophy is up against the guy who made the plaque for.
Karate tournament.
Yes, exactly. Who's also going against the guy who created the Oscar. So it's like
Does he have a little bit of an attitude, Oscar creator guy?
I would think so, yeah. I would think that he would think he's going to win every year, but this year it was an upset.
Yeah.
Like the guy who made the bowling trophy won this year.
What about the guy who just puts like a fist on all? You know that one? I'm like,
Yeah.
He's like, but it's functional. And then you explain to him, it's like, but whenever you're handing it to the best pie, like it doesn't work. Like I could see that being an issue.
Not everybody throws their fist in the air when
Right?
they win a pie eating contest.
Tim
Some people
Meadows,
throw up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I needed to hear that in my trophy making discussions.
But the trophy awards was an idea that I had that I was like, I wonder if I can fit it in, because I don't know what the joke is, and I still don't. I just
Right.
know explaining the joke is funny.
Will you?
You know what I mean?
Let's see. Opener, 10 minutes. Feature, we'll go 20. So at 8:04 p.m. tonight at the Funny Bone in Westport. Do you think you'll know where it'll head?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be doing that bit in the show. But
you are a talent that doesn't have to be on the road. You don't have to continue to do
don't
stand
know.
up, but you have made it a point. I've been checking
Don't
out.
don't
Mr.
scratch
Meadows'
his scab off, dude. Like maybe he's got to tax that. I
But
don't
yeah,
know.
but you've had a successful acting career, especially of recent. So what's pushing you to get back on the road to try this material?
I like doing it. I enjoy having an outlet for additional gripes or thoughts. So it's in and in some of the shows I'm already obligated to do because I said I would do them, so I can't pull out.
Like, oh yeah, I did say yes to that 6 months ago.
Oh yeah, St. Louis, I'll be there.
Come down here from Michigan, acting like he's too good to be walking around St. Louis.
No,
Man.
it's great being here. It is. I'm happy to be here.
You guys are well fed. You have great food. Like yeah.
No, but honestly, I was sort of winding down the stand-up touring for the year.
Right.
So I've only been doing like 2 shows a month, 2 weekends a month,
Okay.
basically. And I wanted to take a little time off this summer, and because I wanted to actually sit down and put my act out on the table, and then go through notes that I have,
Okay.
and listen to the tapes of shows that I've done, and then actually sit down and move things around and try to make. I want to take all of the things that I love doing that are funny. I want to keep them in, and I want to take all of the stuff that I'm tired of doing out.
Right.
So I need to write new transitions to get around some of the stuff.
Is that in preparation for a special pitch?
No, I think it's more in preparation of doing more shows later this year, like
Okay.
in the winter, or in January,
Right.
to just sort of have like a nice whole new rundown of things, so that I know what I'm doing, but it's also kind of fresh because I'm sort of like, oh, this thing comes after this now, so
Right.
So, with your experience in multi-level of just performing arts in your, I guess, tool belt, does the TV show, I realize you film and then it comes out later, whatever else, is acting at this point on Schooled or the Goldbergs or anything else, is that more, do you coast more with acting and then stand-up is more flexing muscles that you have to keep in shape? I'm serious because you're a tenured guy with a ton of great, unbelievable credits. Right. So at that point, I mean, you have to keep up with Brian Callen squawking all over the place. You've got the great Wendy McClendon-Covey to stand up to. So you want to look good next to those other very talented actors. But I do wonder if it's, are you still learning acting all the time?
No, you are. Well, one thing is that the material is always new every week.
Yeah, that's true.
So you have to sort of do the homework and find out, not only just learning the lines, but I always say to them when I don't understand something, why am I saying this? You know, what does this mean?
Right.
So there's that. So there is preparation in this work. So I can't really coast at all on the shows. And I've never really coasted. because I'm always nervous about it, you know.
Right.
So there's no way I can just like go, oh, okay, I'm gonna go do these lines,
Right.
or I'm gonna go and stand on stage and just talk for 45 minutes.
Right.
Like I'm like nervous backstage, and or before they say action,
Right.
you know. So it's still, yeah. I don't. I think I'd be able to coast if I was producing it. It was my money, you know, and it was it was my project.
Right.
Then I'd be like, yeah, it'd be like, Mr. Meadows is gonna be 15 minutes late again. There'd be a lot of that.
Now, what do you think?
Yes!
What do you think about folks that haven't made it to that level that are chronically
That are
15
late.
minutes late? Yeah.
Oh boy.
Here's what I think. Are we talking about people with this?
Hypothetically
You get
speaking.
you get 2 guesses, Tim.
Well, here's one thing I think. I think, you know, people have been talking about reparations and that kind of stuff. I think that our reparations should be a number of things that we're given.
Yes.
And one thing is that black people should always be allowed to be 15 minutes late as part of our reparations.
Yes.
And white people can never comment on it.
Yes.
So we walk into the room 15 minutes late at the board meeting and go, yeah, what's up, guys? Everybody's just looking at you. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
That's right.
Mr. Meadows, please.
15 minutes late again. You can't do anything.
I'll be honest, I didn't see that comment going against me. Huh. That's.
I say Kamala Harris is out here on the stump
Uh-huh.
speech. She's pushing that. She may get my vote.
I'll be honest too, Tim. That was very eloquently put, but you didn't have to kick me in the shin as you were saying reparations. It was a little strange.
I
but-
do want to go back though, because I think one of the greatest characters ever, of course, is Ladies Man, but I want to go back to in the room. I want to go to when you're in the SNL room when you're pitching that. One, what was the inspiration for that character, and how did it go over in the room when you're first introducing that character?
The inspiration for the character was like a number of things, and one was guys. I worked at a liquor store in Detroit when I was growing, like I was 16, 17 years old, and so I would see these guys who would come in, and they worked at a meat packing plant, and they would come in on Monday through Thursday, white schmuck, covered with blood, you know, hair in a hairnet, and they would, you know, buy a beer. On Friday, they come in, cash their check, dress nicely, get their check cash, buy a bottle of Cavassier.
Oh, okay.
And I used to always think those were the coolest guys. Because the part of the week, they looked like butchers.
Right.
Friday, whole
butchering
different
something else
dude.
on the weekend, man. You know what I'm saying?
And, yeah. And so that sort of lifestyle, as I imagined it, was what I would think of when I thought of the Ladies Man. The voice came from doing prank phone calls.
Okay.
And I would change my voice up to call radio stations and ask very specific questions about politics and, you know, things that are going on in our city. For instance, I was at this the city hall meeting, Alderman Smith. Are you still there?
Yes, caller. Yes, please.
Yeah,
Go
listen,
ahead.
and
Yes.
I
Alderman
was-
Smith.
I was very disturbed, not by the topic of the.
Well, what disturbed you?
Well, what disturbed me was the refreshments that they had available to the people in the city.
Well, they had Sprite, Diet
Yeah,
Coke. What did you
Sprite
need?
and also donuts, which I think is a bad combination. I'm gonna hang up now and listen to you answer my call on the radio.
Thank you, caller.
So I would do stuff like that. And so one year I told two of my buddies on the show about it, who are writers, got Andrew Steele and Dennis McNicholas.
Okay.
And I said I pulled this prank phone call this summer, and it was really funny, and I was telling them about it. And they go, "How did you do it?" And I go, I do this voice, and they talk like this a little bit, you know. And then they were watching me, and they were just, and I go, you know, if you guys have ideas for this thing, we can maybe talk about it. So I left their office. I went and literally, I sat down in my chair in my office, which was 2 doors away.
Right.
Turned on my television, and then I hear, and then I was like, "Yeah, it's Andrew and Dennis at the door." And they go, "Don't tell anybody else about that character, that voice. We got an idea for you."
Okay.
It's a guy who has a love radio call-in show, and people call in and ask for advice. But his advice is like what a pimp would advise people. Somebody,
Brilliant. That is.
But a sweet pimp.
but a lovable guy. And I don't even think they said pimp. Just the guy had like his suggestions were bad, and would be like a guy from the street giving bad love advice, based on his lifestyle, And they told me that, and then that was it basically. They came up with the idea for the radio call-in show, the stuff that he did,
Right.
and then as we wrote it and started thinking about it, and when we would write it, we would sit in their office, and I would like sit on the floor or lay on the couch, and then they would go, "Ladies, man, what would you do on the first date?" And I would just improvise.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pick. And then they would just tape it and write, and then we would, the first time, anyways, and several times after that, and they would write it, and just take all of the stuff that we talked about, and then like 2 a.m, they would give me a copy of what they condensed and questioned, and they will come up with some kind of through line or whatever. It's Valentine's Day.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's amazing.
That time frame you just gave us, the 2 a.m, writer's room at Saturday Night Live, even just the table reads, whatever was happening.
Mm-hmm.
How do you focus? And again, you had a long tenure on there, so I imagine at the beginning of your tenure, quite a bit different than when you were leaving, as far as your work habits and how you interacted with co-workers and others.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard people, we've been so lucky to have several SNL cast members on. You hear some of these things. Wildest thing, or wildest, I guess, it doesn't even have to be one incident. Wildest part of being in that super famous room behind closed doors.
Wildest part?
Just the thing that maybe you would look back on now and be like, I can't believe I was part of that on a regular basis. Is it after parties? Is it how people if you're working 36 hours straight, like is there anything ridiculous that came from that writer's room, or just being behind the scenes working on Saturday Night Live?
Well, there was moments. Some of them had already been sort of documented,
Sure.
But where I'm trying to give you a definite.
It's not a super specific question.
Well,
yeah.
like wild things that with Chris Farley would do something insane. Like I was there when he stuck a broom handle in his butt and Wayne like moved around as if it was a tail.
I didn't think.
By the way, every
Jay Moore.
SNL, Jay Moore, every SNL person we have on here has a Chris Farley and ass story, which is fascinating.
Yeah. I think really like it only happened once, and it was just in front of everybody. Seriously,
Wow.
Because I don't ever remember him doing that, and I knew him for a long time.
Right.
So. Mm-hmm. But that was like the wild thing. One thing where I was like, this is insane. But there's been moments too where like the first time I saw a sketch that was mine, I saw it produced and realized, you know what I mean? That was like a big thing. It was like, holy cow, I thought of this on Monday, and now Friday it's an actual thing,
Right.
And one of my favorite memories was I wrote the sketch. My first sketch that I got on was called Cyrano de Bergerac, and it was with Alec Baldwin and Jan Hooks and myself.
Oh, wow.
And the joke of the sketch was that it was a Cyrano, except I was Cyrano, but my nose wasn't long; it was wide. It was like a long, big, fat African nose. And it was the first time I got Lorne Michaels to belly laugh at the idea when he was reading it, and also Jim Downey, who was the head writer. The two of them sat next to each other, and they were both laughing and looking at each other like, can you believe this shit? Like he came through. We're not going to fire him.
That's awesome. What a
And so, but the first time I got that on, it was Thursday. Mike Myers, I'm name dropping, but Mike Myers came by, knocked on my door in my office, and he was like, have you been down to see your set yet? And I went, no. And he goes, come on, I want to be with you when you see your set
that's
for
amazing.
the first time. And so he took me down to the studio, and in the corner, it was this like balcony with like fake ivy. It was like being in a Paris, like, garden apartment or something with a balcony and a lower part. And Mike was just like looking at me like, you thought of that, didn't you? And I was like, yeah.
Could you think of a better person to have you show? Like, look what you've done. And
Yeah.
You're Mike Myers.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
What is it? I mean, I would imagine, as you just mentioned, being able to come up with the concept on Monday and have it eventually air on Saturday. Is that what creates the work ethic in a lot of the SNL players once they leave? Because you're in that routine constantly and you're forced to come up with something creative almost on the spot to be aired in 5 days. Do you guys ultimately take that and apply it to everything else you do once you leave? Because it feels pretty evident because you guys are always working.
Yeah. It's different when you, one point I would make is that it's the best first job to have in show business because you write, produce, act, sort of direct all of your pieces. Wow. And so if like I said, I'd never worked in television, so it was all a learning curve because I'd never done any of it. And so, but you don't get that opportunity if your first job is Friends, or,
Right,
you know what I mean?
right,
Or
right.
a sitcom. Because you're hired as an actor, you get the script, you learn your lines, you block it. You might find something funny to improvise on the set while you're rehearsing.
Right.
But it's somebody else's thing. And so having SNL as your first job, you sort of learn everything you need to learn about TV production in the beginning. And then you move on to work for other people and do other jobs. But you already know things that other people are just learning as they are going on.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Does that give you an advantage when you work with somebody like Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm? Because it's a unique show that's, I mean, if you had somebody that wasn't comfortable with a weird process, I say weird process, it feels like it's a weird process as compared to other shows. Does that give you an advantage even there in that situation?
Well, I mean, if I use SNL and Second City as like my sort of, these are the things that I know and have learned from, you sort of learn to adapt to whatever the situation is. So, working with Larry David wasn't hard for me because it's not scripted. So they can't, in my opinion, they can't blame you if you screw up.
Right.
Because you didn't tell me I'm saying.
Is that a
what I'm-
worry?
Right.
Well, it's a worry if it's scripted.
Sure.
People want you to do the lines as it's written.
Right.
But like with Larry David, that it's improvised. They give you the idea. They tell you what the scene is about, but then they watch you block it and improvise it, and then they figure out the camera angles and everything. And then he'll tell you like, "Oh, don't say this," because it's something that's going to happen later, or I don't want you to say it for whatever reason.
Right.
Yeah.
We were coming up, and I'm going to ask this because of our producer, and we won't keep it too much longer, but I know we have the 25-year anniversary of OJ coming up, and I'm curious, are you considering returning at any point to SNL to bring back OJ Simpson? Would you like to do that? Is there a desire to bring that
I had
character?
no idea that it was even that anniversary.
Cato Kalin was in here last week.
Wow, really?
Really was.
It's just so weird. It's all of it still. All of it is still so weird.
It is.
Tim, what's happening?
No, Marcia Clark has a TV show
Yes, it's still.
The
about.
Kardashians are a thing, Tim.
It's crazy. Marcia Clark's show is like her fantasy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like
Like,
I didn't catch him
the
but
first time.
My first time.
But if he does it again, here's how it's gonna go down. And I'll be the hero. Wow. It's crazy, man.
I wanted to ask him about The Office, and we have to let him walk off of that.
Oh,
He
that's
just
brilliant.
killed the crowd, man. My gosh. I want to remind everybody, go to Funny Bone this weekend. Pack the house for Tim Meadows. It'll be a great time. It's in Westport. You can get tickets online. Funny Bone, go see him. It'll be a great time. The episode of The Office you did, Travis and I probably recited it to each other 740. in the pantheon of one-time appearances on The Office, yours sticks out so strongly. And is that strange to you? That like I don't know if we're just freaks for The Office or what, but I don't know. I really enjoyed you and Steve Carell, and
Thanks.
we've had people from The Office on, and you were like, oh man, that was improvised. Like no, it was written, and they just performed that. But even your situation there was that scripted, sitting in the Chili's with Michael Scott.
It was scripted. I think the only thing we sort of improvised was me joining in with the song.
The baby
I'm
back
burping
ribs.
for my water. Was me joining in with the song. But there were takes where Greg Daniels told us to improvise, but like it's so well written, you don't even really want to.
Right.
And I think even I remember improvising and then it being something that was so crazy that they were just like, no, let's just go back to the, because it was a thing about me. I remember it was like me and Michael were sort of relating to each other, and then I'm giving away information about my past, and so one of the takes I improvised that I had, because my character's very sedated,
Yes.
too. And I said that when I was young, my mother was diabetic and she lost a leg. And in order to cheer her up, I used to do comedy routines, and then they were supposed to just be listening, and they were like, you know what, let's go back to the original stuff. And I was like, okay, I kind of thought that was funny, but
Tim has to get going on his press tour around St. Louis. In one sentence, can you give advice to my friend who starts writing for Sesame Street's Fellowship in May? For a young man jumping into Sesame Street, for writing, for anything, do you have a sentence that you could impart any wisdom on him with?
Oh, boy.
Heading to New York for the first time, hanging around a bunch of puppets. He's not a professional writer, but he could be.
I would say trust your inspiration. Like things, when you get ideas that you go, oh, man.
Okay.
Those are always good ideas.
Okay.
And the ones that don't give you, a feeling of that it could be great, work on those.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
No, I absolutely understand
Yeah.
that. Absolutely.
Tim
Yeah.
Meadows.
Well, that's awesome.
What a great time. Thank you
so much
for
for doing
coming
this.
in.
Really appreciate
Go
it.
to the
you're
Funny
welcome.
Bone this weekend. Tim, thank you. Appreciate it, man.
All right.